146. And we got a short show for everybody today. We had some personal events in Ruth's life happen this week, but she wanted to be dedicated to this show and come on anyways and just give you up-to-date stats on what's happening in real estate. And then we'll probably end the show and maybe talk about a couple of things happening in the real estate market on the 7-figure and above type of market here in Las Vegas. So before we get into all that, Ruth, what is happening in real estate?
Well, thank you, Max. Let's put you in the lobby for just a minute and we will show everybody what's going on here. There we go. We have 24 days of inventory and 1,770 of those are single family homes. And 449 of those are single family homes that are 436,000 and under. It's hard for me to imagine the median priced home in Las Vegas is 436,000, but it is. And they are selling like hotcakes. As you can see, we had 133 closings yesterday. We put 100 under contract, meaning people made offers that were accepted. And we listed 140 homes. So the sales average for February is 102 sales per day, which is the number used to come up with the 24 days of inventory. And, everybody says, and Max, you can comment on this when I'm finished, but everybody says there's no inventory. Well, there is inventory. It just sells as soon as it comes online. If you realize that, we sold 50,735 homes last year. We couldn't have done it without inventory. And we're on track to do the same thing this year. So I do believe that there is inventory. It's just that people are snatching it up because of the demand and the low interest rates, even though they did tick up a little bit. And let's see. Yeah, brisk 102. So we'll see what happens this weekend. I don't know if the Super Bowl is going to affect people wanting to go out and look at homes, but we shall certainly see. I would tell you, and this is something that I got from the Review Journal. They said Las Vegas housing market was in a bleak shape a decade ago. Well, yes, no kidding, right? Property values had plunged. Banks had foreclosed on homes throughout the Southern Nevada, and builders' sales had evaporated. Today, prices have never been higher. Fueled by cheap money, Las Vegas is in a prolonged buying boom, marked over the past year or so by rapid sales, owners selling above their asking price, builders putting buyers on waiting lists, and fast rising prices that reach new all-time highs practically every month. And that's just about the truth. I think there's 1 or 2 months this year where it didn't increase in price, but that's it. Last year, sorry. The median sales price of previously owned single-family homes, the bulk of the market, was a record $435,000 last month, up 26% or $90,000 from January of 2021. So if you bought a home in January of 2021 at the median price back then of what that would be like $390,000, something like that. Max, you'll correct me on my math. Anyway, $90,000 in equity that you just gained on your purchase in 1 year. So last month's median price was up more than a threefold from a decade ago when it bottomed out at $118,000. All the smart people that bought homes back then, as scary as it was, when the market plunges, it's hard to buy, but people did, and they have just they've made $318,000 in profits of equity on their home. That's just amazing. And Southern Nevada, once booming construction industry, largely it ground to a halt after the bubble burst, and the resale market was dominated by foreclosures, short sales. And when a lender agrees to sell a home for less than it's owed on that mortgage, that was the norm. And 73.6% of all home sales in 2012 involved underwater or foreclosed properties. And last month, that was less than 1%. So that's to me a really phenomenal set of statistics there. And if you take this chart, what a difference a decade makes. The median sales price then, 118. The price now, I'm going to bring you back up here. I think we can both see this at the same time. Let's try this. Can you see that good enough?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay. So you can see the differences, and they're just unbelievable. The share of homes sold within 30 days, 36.7% in 2012. And in 2022, I mean, it's almost 73% of the homes sell, within 30 days. And go ahead.
Yeah, to correct your math, I mean, literally last year around this time, we were talking about the median home sales being actually 340,000, Ruth, right? Because that's medium sales have increased by 90,000. That is incredible for over a year. I mean, I was just telling, some of my friends and clients this week that I remember the day, we would never thought that we would get back to prices during, pre-financial crisis in here in Las Vegas, right? I mean, homes selling for $175, $180 a square foot. Now we're breaking through that. I mean, it's an average around now 200 square feet here. Wow. And so it's incredible. And if I was a real estate agent right now, I mean, obviously this cannot go on forever like this, right? There is going to be a bit of slowdown here. Yeah. It's probably going to be about 2, maybe 3 years. All right, we'll see what the Federal Reserve does this year with interest rates and how many times they raise it. And the initial flush of interest rate hikes may scare a little bit of people, especially homeowners. And I would take advantage of that right now and build a story around why it's a good time to sell. If someone's on the fence about like upgrading right now, they should do it now, not wait, because eventually, if they sell their home less and the market stays stable, right, and then there's no advantage in waiting other than maybe building some more equity and more savings to put down on a next house. But there's never a better time right now than to actually start buying right now, to upgrade, right? Because you're going from one house to another. I mean, it's a wash right now, but at least then you get 2 more, 3 more years of enjoyment in the house that you actually really want, instead of waiting and hoping that the market goes down.
Exactly.
And it might not. That's the crazy thing about this is we're in an unprecedented time where the monetary policy in our country and around the world has been very accommodating to printing more money. It's happening, not just in America. And so we have 2, people in positions of leadership in our country at the head of the Treasury, which is Janet Yellen right now, and the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, who have proven to be very active in manipulating, monetary policy in order to accommodate corporate profits and economic growth. So we could be in a golden era, where we may never see a true recession and market crash of any sort in asset prices for a long time, because there's a lot of liquidity out there right now. All this money printing, we've printed, since the Obama administration, I believe $15 trillion. Our debt has almost doubled in the last 12 years. So where's all that money go, right? I mean, that's the question everybody should be asking themselves in their mind. Where is all that money printing going? Well, history has shown us that eventually it lands in the hands of investors, big institutions, and corporations. And that's why you see all these hedge funds and private equity firms gobbling up real estate as fast as possible, because they understand that, one, the value of the dollar, or the value of money, is slowly decreasing because of the inflationary pressures. That's the big thing that's happening right now in the economy and in the financial world, is inflation, right? It's the talk of the town. And so that's not going away for the next 2-3 years, because there's too much liquidity and demand out there right now. Will it eventually slow down? Maybe. That's if the government stops printing money. Who knows if that's going to happen? I mean, if this infrastructure bill comes about this year or next year or at some point, right? I think I think a watered down version of the infrastructure bill is actually supported by both parties, right? There's just some little details in there that each party is trying to throw in there that they're arguing and squabbling about. But the need for roads, bridges, infrastructure, that is all needed. Both sides agree that it is needed. So,
It
I mean, we
is.
could be spending $1 trillion over the next, 4 or 5 years, and that's more economic activity. Where are they going to get that money? They're not getting it from taxpayer dollars right now, right? They're going to borrow from the future taxation of America for the next, 10 years.
Right.
So, my whole point in telling you this is we might be entering one of, it started way before COVID hit, right? From 2000, probably 15, 16, where we've had some unprecedented growth. I mean, the acceleration in real estate prices and asset prices started right around 2016, 17. When people were slowly coming out of the financial turmoil, right? When people could clear their credit reports from bankruptcies and FHA loans, you could get in conventionals, they could qualify again. And right now, what's the great thing about the current situation is the U.S. household right now has very little debt versus income right now. The lowest we've seen in history. 9% of U.S. household income is going to debt service payments. Historically, over the last 30 years, it's been around 10 and a half. No, it's not that high. 10 and a half and 11%. If it was 20%, we would all, we would be crippled as a country.
You're talking about debt.
Just debt payments.
Not like mortgages. Or are you? I lost you. You back? Can't hear you. Love technology. Can't hear you. I can kind of hear you way in the background. He's going to come back in. So, what he's saying is that, we don't know a lot of money. And when you look at how the housing market, this is my question for Max when he joins us again. My question is, with all this home equity and net worth, here he comes. So you're there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. So my question to you is, so you're, first of all, to people that didn't hear that, you said 10%, 10%. That includes mortgages, yes?
That does include mortgages. So all debts, right? Service payments. So, disposable income is at an all-time high right now. And liquidity is at an all-time high, right? So U.S. households control a little bit over $7 trillion of cash right now at U.S. banks. Wow. So the savings over the last couple of years has accumulated now.
Well, plus, we're talking about how the home equity has increased drastically. It says like 118,000 and now it's 436,000. Right. That's a lot of equity, and we're sitting on a lot of untapped cash, if you will. So I don't know how that's going to play into things, except we're in the process of refinancing our home because at our age especially, why do we want to sit on all that equity? There's no reason.
There's no reason to.
So
especially because inflation.
When we cash out, when we refinance, Max, we're going to, do some things we wanted to do to the house. I'm going to get artificial grass. I'm going to, again, I'm going to put the money back into the economy.
Correct. Yeah. The measure of how strong the economy is how quickly money exchanges hands. It's called the velocity of money, right? And when people have cash in their hand, velocity is quick, right? If people just store everything in equity, it slows down. And what we're not seeing, though, surprisingly enough, though, is that people are not cashing out and buying cars and doing all that stuff, right? It's not like the times we were prior to the financial crisis where just people were just, cashing out and just spending it like,
crazy.
Like there was a disease on the money. Yeah. We're seeing a lot more prudence this time around, and forced prudence too, right? Obviously with the supply chain issues. And the lack of the ability to go travel and do all those other things has caused people to maybe hoard a little bit of cash and in fear as well. But yes. I can tell you, for all the people who are hoarding too much cash, one, inflation is a real threat, actually the biggest threat to money right now. So what you want to do is actually buy more assets, right? If and if you want to improve your home so that improves the assets, you do it now, because you're getting if inflation continues at 15%, that means the earlier you do it, every year that inflation runs at 15%, you're getting a 15% discount for doing that now versus waiting, right? So do that, because everybody's concerned. I talk to investors all the time, and their biggest concern is that, oh, we're printing too much money. This inflation is going to run rampant. Let me share with you the real risky inflation. Right, this is the scary inflation that's not happening right now. The inflation that we're seeing right now is the fact that there's not enough product being available to meet demand right now because of the supply chain, because of all the lockdowns, things of that nature. That's normal inflation, meaning eventually when supply comes back, online and meets demand, then prices will stall. And if, supply exceeds demand, then prices will fall. I mean, that's just economics. The scary inflation is when the US dollar is worth less or is not accepted at the same value versus our trade partners like China, like Europe, like Japan, places that we import goods from. The good news for America is the rest of the world's printing money just like we are. In fact, the federal balance sheet in our country is actually one of the lowest around the world among the developed nations. Japan right now's Federal Reserve balance sheet is 135% of their GDP.
Now say that again.
Japan's balance sheet on the federal in their central bank, right?
Japan.
How much money they're carrying from buying their own government debt is 135% of their annual GDP. So, and America's 35, right? So their Federal Reserve Bank is printing money and borrowing more money, right, than their own country's entire economic growth for the year.
Wow.
So the U.S. is about 35%, right? We're the largest economy in the world. And as long as the rest of the world depends on our consumption to drive their economic prosperity. So we have an upper hand here. So we don't need to be afraid of the scary inflation, which is all of a sudden, right? Really, I mean, that's why China is a big threat. But good news for China is they rely so much on consumption of America that they're manufacturing. If America stops and halts importing goods from China, I mean, China's economy would literally fall apart.
Wow.
Right? So they understand that there's a symbiotic relationship, that the different countries, and that's why China, because they have their own government system where the people, the CCP control most of all assets and above. There's a small group of people that benefit. They can manipulate their currency so that they can maintain the stronghold in manufacturing across the world. They've done that for years now, and so we're not too concerned about another country not accepting the dollar or saying at one point we're not going to import these goods unless you give us twice as amount for the same goods and services. So we're a worldwide economy right now. That inflation is not there. Right. And that's why the Federal Reserve continues to print money, because they know from a GDP standpoint and, pulling of the levers here that we're still in good shape compared to the trade partners across the world. Right. So inflation is not that scary if you understand what it is and what the scary inflation is. Now, granted, you should not spend every dollar that you have. Right. I mean, because you have to have cash. The other concern that I hear a lot from people is that eventually, the political environment, our country is going to go down and our money is going to be worthless, right? Because of all this debt. Well, if that's the case, if you really think it through, you should still get rid of cash as quickly as possible and buy assets. Because I can tell you, my mom telling me stories of, Vietnam and the collapse of the North Vietnamese government to the Communist Party. Basically money was zero value, and the only people who had any assets were in real assets like gold at the time, right?
Wow.
So if you're going to go down that route of you need to hoard money right now, cash, I mean, you're every scenario that you're afraid of, cash is worthless. So what you want to do is actually buy assets, right, as quickly and fast as possible. and then keep cash available for immediate liquidity needs. In the financial world, we say anywhere between 3 to 6 months, but in a scary time like this, maybe extend that to 6 to 12 months or 24 months of liquidity to pay your, bare minimum expenses, your mortgage,
Right.
car payments, insurance, and things of that nature, food. But outside of that, you should not be carrying cash right now because it's a big mistake. And that's why, these big financial firms are not carrying. They're trying to unload cash as quickly as possible. And that's why the real estate market in all places are it's going skyrocket because so much liquidity out there vying for very few assets at this point.
Well, yeah. And these $1 million homes, we're selling almost four times as many as we did before. And I did this today. Let's see if we can bring it up. Hide you and show you. Hold on. There we go. So there's 368 available homes on the market right now that are over $1 million, or at $1 million plus. And it's just amazing to me because this was not always the case. Even in 2020, we were only selling, maybe $1.5 million homes a day. Then last year we went up to 4.5. Right now we're hovering right around 4, but I suspect when the buying season comes, there'll be even more homes come on the market and more buyers buying them. If that doesn't happen and there's not as many, then the prices are going to continue to rise, to your point about supply and demand. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. $1 million homes, California are pretty much every home in California right now in a somewhat desirable area. I looked at my hometown in Huntington Beach. You cannot find a, 2,000 square foot home for less than $1 million in Orange County in Huntington Beach right now. It's ridiculous. So, and, there's only so much land to build these multi-million-dollar homes too, and that's the reason why these homes are accelerating in value, because they understand there's not enough land to build these $1 million homes. So you got to be subject to the available existing inventory for the most part. And I have clients that were telling me they bought their $1.5 million home in Manhattan Beach or whatever, Hermosa Beach 4 years ago, and now it's worth $3 million, $3.5 million. They've doubled in. Truly, at this period of time, the rich are absolutely getting richer through these asset prices, going up, and quickly too. It's accelerating. It's not slowing down. That's the crazy thing about this is that the real research I need to do is, eventually where's really all this money coming from? I know where the Federal Reserve, but who is controlling it, right? The big institutions and hedge funds. I'd like to really see some statistics on how much of these.
What do you mean? Where is it coming from? Who's buying these things?
Who's actually buying, right? These things. And yeah, who knows? The crazy thing about big resets like the financial crisis is that it's allowed people to wipe out entire debts. And this is the reason why I think any business person or any person who wants to reach level of success is that do not focus in the beginning on the money. Focus on the skills, because you don't lose skills, right? The people who are multimillionaires before the financial crisis, and then the financial crisis came, they became multimillionaires again, right? Because they
had a skill set.
They had the skill set to execute on the things that made them, into successful multimillionaires before, right? And now they're double because they caught the early wave of this economic boom that we've been on for now almost 13 14 years. So
right, yeah. I'm showing a home up here that's the most expensive home in the market is $32,500,000, which is it's 14,000 square feet, so that's about $2,300 per square foot, and it sits on an acre. And to your point that a lot of these $1 million homes or 5 and up, they sit on more acreage than the normal home.
Mhm.
And I've tried to do my research to see who actually owns this home, but it's hidden. It's hidden in a Florida LLC. So and when I went to find that out, it wouldn't give me the information I wanted.
Mhm.
But look at this home. It's beautiful. And every room, this is the backyard. Every room has those.
This is not Anthony Shea's home from
I,
Lone Depot.
I don't know. This is in the Enclave.
Hmm.
No, this one's not in the Enclave. This is up. This is in Seven Hills, I believe.
Yeah.
The owner on record is Zeta LLC. So I wasn't able to get down to the nitty gritty who really owns this home. You may know. I'm sure people know. I just was unaware of. Was not able to find it. But the back of this home is incredible. 14,000 square feet. And look at that view. I mean, how awesome is that? Anyway, the earnest money, what do you think the earnest money is? It's $1 million plus.
It's 5%, right?
Yeah.
Or 3%?
Well, yeah, they're asking for $1 million, $1.25 million. Anyway, and it's all cash, so only accept all cash, of course.
Of course.
But I mean, this is Vegas, and we never had stuff like this before. I mean, this was built in 2017, so a lot of our $1 million homes have been built since, the foreclosure bust. So they're not that old. And then, of course, you have some older sections of Las Vegas where the homes are, up to 5 million, but not these gigantic homes. They're generally built, in the past 5 years. Just amazing, the money. Right. And where does the money come from? When you said that, what I took a different meaning, but I was thinking, well, what I see watching YouTube and things like that, there are more people that have taken advantage of becoming entrepreneurs and selling things on the internet. And I mean, ad after ad is, how I started making 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 a month. Here's my secret book, buy it for $1, whatever. But there's just so many of them that have, somebody recently, well, you've got the cat people, right? That's an example, the cat ladies. And then, these other things, like some little kid just came up with a cookie, a chocolate chip cookie. Who would have thought, you could sell millions of dollars of chocolate chip cookies on the internet today, when that's been going on since the beginning, since I can remember. Toll House cookies.
Right. No, I mean, this is a Renaissance era right now, where
it really is.
If you really sit to think about it and look around on daily household goods and different ways of doing things and see inefficiencies, and if you can make it better, you can get it to the market. That idea can get to marketplace fairly quickly now. Right. You don't need to go through those traditional channels of finding something. You just have to have a concept, an idea, and then prove it. And if it can be done, I think you can grow very quickly. It just takes a lot of grit and confidence and a lot of hard work. Same thing that's always made people successful, right? Those elements haven't changed. But, it's much simpler now. You literally, if you understand the marketplace and see a deficiency and you can solve it, I mean, the world is your oyster right now. There's so much opportunity.
Do you watch Shark Tank?
Not that much, but I've seen several episodes. But yeah,
the ingenuity and the what my point was going to be. I mean, you've got 10-year-olds presenting products, and they're talking like, better than a lot of speakers I listen to. They're very articulate. They have a grasp on vocabulary. They understand the numbers, and they know how to talk to where people can understand what they're saying very succinctly and articulate. I just love it. I just love to see the kids go out there and the entrepreneurial spirit. I don't think is in my lifetime has never been better.
No, yeah. I mean, because there's been so much, immediate success too. So that's gratifying. That keeps people going. And you've never had that, because information took so long to travel before
Yes.
this
Yeah.
day and age. Right now, it's pretty much instant. And if you have a good idea, man, and a good marketing and a good hook, it's and you don't even have to have a good idea. that's somewhat of the challenge of these days too. Is that you just have to be able to articulate. I was just watching the story of WeWork yesterday on I think Hulu or Netflix. One of those, basically the story of this Adam, whatever, the guy that started WeWork with his buddy, and I mean they put lipstick on a pig, as they say, and they took a concept that's been around for decades now, or hundreds of years, which is WeWork is a office sharing space. So like basically it's like a Regus. I don't know if you know what a Regus is. It's like an executive office that Regus goes in and buys or rents out a whole floor of a building, and then they sublease those. They subdivide their floor into offices and common spaces and conference rooms, and they charge individual like entrepreneurs.
Right.
Well, WeWork did the same thing, but they put a story behind it and create a vision around community and collaboration and all these things, and it attracted these young millennials who wanted to do something. We talked about actually this, why Apple has been so successful over the years is when you create a product or form a company, you need to make sure that you have a mission that's greater than just a product or whatever. So WeWork was trying, Apple's changing the world one phone at a time. And WeWork was trying to connect the way people did business together, right? By bringing them together in a single space so that the free flowing of information could happen face to face, right? So they created this tremendous story, and the CEO was just basically telling that story over and over again. He was throwing basically parties all the time to attract this. He created an environment where young people, one, believed in his mission, and two, worked in an environment where it was super fun. They had parties, they worked really hard, but they also partied really hard, right? And so in the beginning, it was great. And over time, I mean, that story caught wind of, some of the biggest investors in the world, JP Morgan. The biggest story is like, SoFi Bank of Japan gave them $4 billion. And it really, that's what changed things for them in 2016, 2017. But it ended up being, analysts, in 2018, 17, 18, 19, as they were getting ready to go public here. Good thing they didn't. I mean, I look at this guy, he should be in jail right now. If his company, if he pulled off the things that he did while the company was public, this CEO would be in jail or serve time or pay a massive penalty. Wow. But because the company was still private and they were only taking in what they call corporate money, right, from like corporate investors. I mean, shame on the corporate investors for not doing their homework, right? Is how the government looks at that, right? He wasn't going after seed money from individual investors. So, but my whole point in saying that is he created something that has been done for many, many years, but he created a story and a marketing campaign behind it that was so powerful that attracted a lot of these young, entrepreneurs, bringing them together and creating a space for them to work. And he was able to grow an idea to at one point a $47 billion valuation for that company. Wow. But it's still right now worth anywhere between $10 billion. Not too shabby.
No.
So, I mean, my whole point in saying that is that if you can build a good marketing, idea and vision around what you're trying to do, it could be the same thing that's been done for years. Hundreds of years. Yeah. Right. And people will throw money at it.
Yeah.
And that's how much liquidity is out there right now.
Yeah, and the other point too is, and you briefly mentioned this, I mean, the cost of marketing, and what is this, the greatest, cheapest distribution device, we've ever had, this that we can hold in the palm of our hand, and we can market to the world, and for pennies. So. And we can target the markets. We can do all these things, and these platforms are free. And you pay for the advertising, but they're free for people to be there, like Facebook.
Right.
and Instagram, and you can advertise your product so easily. And YouTube. I mean, it's just amazing.
You can test it so easily. I mean,
Yes.
if you have, like, say, I think the average Facebook user has maybe a couple hundred friends. If they're highly engaged friends, though, and you comment and they comment on your posts and things of that nature, I mean, you can come up with an idea, a concept, put it out there, and see the response, right? And see if you can sell something in that small group of people without, I mean, zero marketing costs, right? I mean, and if you get a good response and if you can get a sale from that small group of people, then you can go and expand, right? I would not, if I'm an inventor, entrepreneur, or whatever, I would not, spend any money on advertising or marketing or anything like that.
And I'm doing a class around this, building a story brand. And this is a book by Donald Miller, and it is fantastic. I've listened to it once when we were driving to California, and now I'm actually reading it because it's so easy to read, and every marketeer, every real estate agent needs to read this book, or at least come to my class.
Yeah. No, you want to capture. There's another great book called "The Origin of Brands" by. I forgot the name of the author, but it's called The Origin of Brands. And it talks about how Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and all these other companies, why when we think of soda, we think of Coke, right? Like, and things of that nature, how these companies, it's capturing mind share, right? I mean, usually the first to market wins, but there's always room for the second, third, right?
Yes.
But after that, you're basically competing against everybody else.
Yeah.
And so it's the race to win mind share. And it's not about, you just have to create a difference in a concept that's slightly different to build your own category. And that's why it's important to actually, build a niche brand in any type of industry, especially in real estate, because you don't want to be known as the, there's only one real estate guy in town, right? That's Aaron Taylor. You can't be another real estate guy.
No.
You got to be, maybe the Summerlin real estate guy, right? To build a different mind share, because if you're competing against Aaron Taylor, I mean, most likely you're not going to win in that particular case, especially if he's in a market that he puts a lot of effort into.
Yeah.
So you got to build a different category. So when people, run across something that's in your niche, they think about you. And so there's always infinite ways of doing that. And everybody needs to understand how to do that if they're going to survive.
Absolutely.
Brand building is more important today than it's ever been before.
Ever. Right. Well, it's because the audiences are there. It's easier to reach the audiences. That's, to me, the secret.
And trust is such a valuable thing right now. People value that more than ever before. The great thing about what's happening in mainstream media right now is people are tired of being deceived. Right? People 100% are tired of it. And so when you become a business or a person that, lives your word, follows through, are a professional, and have a face to your business, you end up winning. You're going to win big, right? Yeah. As long as you maintain that trust.
Honesty and integrity, confidence, trust.
It's so rare now, in the face of what we're seeing around the world. And so, this is an opportunity, and that's why brand building and getting your face and name out there where you just gobble up. Like you build a business that's, in a brand right now, it could last you for the next couple of decades. Right. And as long as you deliver, right. That's the caveat. You got to deliver and make sure you follow through on your promises and live in integrity. But you do that right now. I mean, because there's so much deception just all around, even in you talk about the entrepreneurial space. I watch these YouTube channels and I watch all these young, finance guys talking about this and that. And I know they're full of it, right? For the most part.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've watched some of them too, especially in the real estate and mortgage, and they don't know what they're talking about.
They don't know what they're talking about. They're regurgitating top headline news.
Yeah.
They're not moving deeper in the race. Here's the problem, right? And I'm making a prediction right now is 5 years ago, I think the race was to create as much content as possible, as quickly as possible to get your name out, right? Now, though, content is abundant, right? So your content needs to stand out in some form or fashion, right? And so more than ever now, you need to create high quality. I'm not talking about like production value where the lighting is perfect or whatever, but I'm talking about real information that solves an immediate problem that people are having, right? Mm-hmm. No one's going to watch you if you're just talking about yourself, if you're talking about how great you are. I mean, there's ton of cares. Nobody cares. Everybody cares about themselves, right? So you got to, in the real estate market, you got to be in the minds of your audience more than ever now to understand the questions they may be asking themselves, the concerns that they have around their life and how that affects their real estate holdings, right? You got to be a professional and a psychologist right now and create content that like answers those questions for them, because then they'll tune in, right? Because it's on their mind. And so the next 5 years, I feel the winners of the content creation world is going to be the ones that are going to be more precise, right? And valuable in their information to their audience in the current moment. It's not about quantity anymore. No. I'm tired. I look at the way I consume social media as a gauge to, I'm a micro, element in the world. And I know there's probably, a third of the world that's like me, right? I mean, how I think, how I work, whatever. So if I'm doing one thing, then I know a third of America or the world is doing the same thing. And right now, as I consume social media, right, I'm very specific to what I watch according to what my needs are right now in my life. So for instance, I just got a puppy, a dog. So what am I consuming now? Only videos on how to train puppies, how to, feed them, how to potty train them. I'm very specific. And everything else, I may have one or two at most, what we call distraction type of consumption, meaning like, I play Fortnite with my kids and some friends. I'll watch a Fortnite gamer play his games but I'm still doing it specifically to learn something and sometimes to zone out. But I'm not watching real estate, professionals touting how great they are and, the home they just sold. I mean, it's just not, right. And even if I was, if I'm looking to sell my house right now, I would be watching someone that talks about how to stage your home properly, how to make sure that your deals don't fall out, what the mortgage situation is right now, where the school systems, all the things really real estate, not how great of a real estate professional you are. That is the last thing I'm going to be looking for, right? If you look at the thought process of how people make a decision, when they decide that, okay, I'm ready to buy a home, they're not going, what real estate professional can I use? That's not the first question, right? The first question is, where do I want to live?
Yes.
Right? How many bedrooms, what are the needs? I'm asking those questions first. And so you want to be early in what I call the chain of process in that decision-making and build content that captures them, answers the questions on the early stages of their decision-making. You touting yourself to be the best realtor and, all the homes you sold is literally maybe the last step before they will pick up the phone and call you, right? If you're there and you're competing against, another agent who's doing all this other content around, quality information that the client and the prospect is already asking, and they're consuming their content. I mean, you're out of the race already. They've already captured the mind share. Right? That's where the origin of brands come in, the brand building come in. They've already captured that. You're irrelevant at that point if all you're doing is building, what I call promotional pieces on you as a business or a real estate agent. Right. So my prediction 5 years from now, I mean, it's going to be higher quality videos. um, the quantity is not going to matter as much as quality. And I can tell you right now, Mr. Beast, the biggest YouTuber on the platform. I mean, he releases like maybe one video every 3 weeks.
Wow.
Right. But his videos are so like out of this world and so interesting that like, he gets 70 million views. Right.
God. Wow. Yeah. Well, yes, quality. And I have been, probably for the past, since the beginning of the pandemic, talking about agents getting comfortable doing videos and putting their content into buckets of services that they offer, and talk about each bucket, until, with stories from clients and interest. It has to have, human interest as well as give people information.
Yeah, absolutely. They should do more, instead of like testimonials. I mean, they should do higher production testimonial videos where it actually talks about the story behind how the
Exactly.
homeowner,
The story.
how the homeowner decided to buy a home, what they needed, and how you ended up helping them, like the whole arc of the story,
right,
from beginning to end. And that'll be more interesting, right? And especially if there's any type of emotional grab in there. I mean, it makes it even better. So,
of course, yeah,
higher quality. It's not quantity, it's quality that's going to really capture attention in audiences in the future. That's why you see Gary Vee, he's not pushing out like he was before anymore, right? I think he understands the same concept. There's a little bit of fatigue here that's happening. And if all you're doing is spewing, just unthoughtful content out there, it's going to be ignored, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
that's
my rant for the day.
Yeah, well, and you're right. And the pandemic added so much fuel to that fire, because people had nothing else to do but to consume content, and they did get fatigued. That's for sure. And
right. Yeah. Exactly right. If I was a real estate agent right now, understanding where the country is, it's about the outdoors and adventure right now. People miss that.
Exactly.
Right? They've been cooped up in their homes. I would be talking more about how to get out there and why Vegas is a great spot for that all around, given all the stuff that we have here in town, the international airport, Bryan Head's like 2.5 hours away. Right. Mount Charleston's right here. The Red Rocks is here. All the hiking. I mean, you're only 4 hours from the beach. I mean, there's so many advantages to Vegas. And then now that we don't have any mask anymore, you don't have to wear a mask indoors. So very strategic for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
Very strategic.
Yeah. And we're having some classes this week, Max. We have contracts tomorrow from 10 to 1. Great class, a new class that Jimmy and I wrote. He did, of course, he does most of the writing. I put it together and organize it and what have you. And then we have agency on Thursday from 10 to 1. We always serve free lunch. You can Zoom or you can come in and enjoy being with other people and networking and having free lunch. So we've got 2 CE classes this week. We do our best to get all the core classes in every month. And last week was a week off for people and for the instructors. So now we are having 2 this week, and I believe 2 next week, but go to bee.vegas to see the complete schedule.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. Well, this show did not end up being very short.
Well, there's a lot to talk about. There really is.
A lot to talk about. A lot going on right now. I mean, take advantage of this time period because we will have a lull eventually. Yeah. Right. But that lull will be an opportunity for people who are taking advantage of this time period right now, because, we'll have a reset of the real estate industry, much like we did in 2008. And if you happen to survive through it and have marketing dollars and build a solid brand, I mean, you're going to do even better on the next cycle up. So, and
Max, I just really think that people need to listen to you about your knowledge of money and what makes the world go round, so to speak, because you really articulate it very well and easy to understand, and it makes sense. And I really appreciate, that aspect of of your skill set.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Ruth. It's a lot simpler than people make it out to be.
Well,
If you just remove all the noise. All right,
well,
everybody.
we'll see you next week. I'll be here Monday, and then next Saturday we'll have a guest, and we'll get on with the show.